What mattered from the Jazz's latest Summer League win over the Denver Nuggets, and what can you expect from the Jazz's starting front court statistically this upcoming season? Find out next on Locked On Jazz.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Jazz. Leif Thulin with you here, and I'm, as always, excited, honored to fill in for David Locke and talk to you about my favorite team, the Utah Jazz. I'm a lifelong NBA fan, a lifelong Jazz fan, credentialed NBA analyst for the Locked On NBA Big Board, Combine attendee, Summer League attendee, and lover of all things hoops. Don't expect all the geeky numbers of always to be gone that David provides, because I love some stats as well, and I'm a statistician for the Jazz. Well, the Jazz are 3-0 in Summer League. That's awesome, but I'm going to tell you what matters. Thanks for making Locked On Jazz your first listen each and every day. And remember, Locked On Jazz is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube at Locked On Jazz, where the best way to help us grow is comment anything below. Today's question, though, is how many points per game can we expect Walker Kessler to score? Let me know your thoughts below, and I'll address it in my segments to come in this. So, what are we talking about today? In the first segment, I'm going to react to the Jazz's win over the Nuggets in the third Summer League game in Las Vegas and tell you what actually mattered from this game. And there are a few takeaways that actually do matter in each of these games, especially as you watch some of these young players with a trained eye. In the second segment, I'll go over my projections for John Collins. And in the final segment, I'll go over my statistical projections for Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler, the faces of the franchise for your Utah Jazz. All right, let's dive right in. The Jazz and Nuggets played, and Ochai Agbaji had some time to shine as he returned from back spasms. The Jazz won. They won by 5. For those of you who are big bettors on the NBA, you may have known that because Julian Strawther hit a 3 after the Jazz took the shot clock violation just to be courteous, and that changed the spread and the over and under. So apologies or congratulations, depending how you bet on that game. So the Jazz won by 5. What mattered? The biggest takeaway, Keyonte George sprained his right ankle. But reports say he was walking off under his own power and hardly any of a limp was there. That is the same right ankle that he hurt at Baylor. That's why it matters. Ankle injuries happen. Some are severe, some are not. I wouldn't say this is a chronic injury. Like basketball happens. Like you shoot well and someone cuts under your foot, the Zaza Pachulia and Kawhi Leonard. It's rare it's that severe. It hurts, and a sprained ankle is no fun. But if Keyonte George is walking here, I don't think it's the end of the world. Maybe there's going to be some Jazz Twitter that says, he shouldn't have been playing. Oh, my goodness. And you know what? That's fine. I think he's proven he's really good, but I don't know if he's gotten the too good for Summer League label. But maybe that means we don't see him the rest of the way, and what does that mean for the Jazz's outcome? I don't know. But one thing I can tell you is the Jazz played beautiful basketball to get up 20 early and held on, and that's a win. But the game changed when Keyonte got hurt. Like the gravity that he displayed on the basketball court at the Summer League level is enormous enough to make the game shift. The Jazz actually ended up playing positionless basketball, which is encouraging in some ways, but also a little bizarre in Summer League when you want to see some players do certain things. Like the Jazz may transition towards positionless basketball. I'll talk about that when I talk about Lauri Markkanen and how you may expect him to have the ball in his hands a little more often. But I will tell you that it wasn't pretty basketball in the second half. The Jazz did get the win, though, and you know what? There's never anything I'm going to be too mad about when the Jazz win. What else happened? Luka Samanic was pretty good. I mean, he had 14.7 rebounds. Micah Potter had 10 boards. Ochai Agbaji had 14 and 7. And he also, carried the load for a bit while Keyonte George only played 10 minutes. You saw Colby Ross was still running the ship pretty well. Nick Ogenda played pretty well. But none of that's truly important to me. You can see the gravity of Keyonte George. You still haven't seen Bryce Sensabaugh or Taylor Hendricks. That's not horribly important, though. I would like to see Hendricks try to play one of these games and just see how he plays running up and down the floor and see if his athleticism and shooting just clicks right away. It may not matter if it happens right away. It's just out of curiosity for me. Agbaji can shoot off the ball. On the ball, I've mentioned I think he's got some shortcomings. One other thing that I would say matters from my takeaways from Summer League, this is not only from this game, but also what I witnessed in person. I don't think Joey Hauser or Johnny Juzang, who are the two of the two-way players for the Utah Jazz, are NBA caliber players. They both are excellent college players, and impressive shooting ability is what gives them any possibility. But I don't think they do much outside of shooting, and I think that their shooting is watered down in the NBA. Like Joey Hauser was a 46% shooter at Michigan State. He was a double-double type of guy, and Johnny Juzang had an amazing streak in his sophomore year against to lead the UCLA Bruins to the Final Four. And then his junior year, he kind of battled an ankle injury and slowed down a little bit, but still a very good scorer. The way that they score isn't like going to happen in the NBA, and their shooting ability is really good, but it's watered down in the NBA because you have to be good at shooting and other things, and I think they are just good shooters. The last takeaway, chemistry matters. So the Jazz are 3-0 in the Las Vegas Summer Leagues after a 1-2 stint in Utah. That's 6 games, and that's what matters. They're winning games, and they're able to win even with no Keontae George in the second half. The Jazz are one of the only undefeated teams. There's 3 of them. That means they can get buys to further rounds in the Summer League tournament, and so maybe we can see more Jazz wins. Keontae George playing would help that, but I don't know if we really want to see Keontae George after injuring an ankle. We'll see how that happens. We'll keep an eye on that. And let's go Jazz while we're at it. I mean, we want the Jazz to win at all capacities. Let me tell you about what my expectations are for John Collins. But first, a word from BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's so easy to get caught up in what everyone else needs from you and you never take a moment to think about what you need. I know recently that's been going through my head as I've been thinking a lot about what other people need. And I think, wow, like what do I need? I take a break and I feel so much better after doing so. But there's people with far more stress on their plate than me. So why spend all of our time giving if it can leave us stretched thin, burned out? Therapy could be something you could be interested in. Therapy can give you all the tools to find more balance in your life. So keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time with no additional charge. If you're not having fun with one therapist and you don't think they're being helpful, you can switch to another one with no additional charge, and that is awesome. Find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Welcome back to Locked On Jazz. Now, John Collins is an interesting player. I talked about this when he was first brought on board by the Jazz. Now he's officially a member of the Jazz as the trade's gone through. And for those everydayers, this may sound a little familiar because I'm going to tell you what you can expect from John Collins for those who love the Jazz and maybe are not as familiar with John Collins. And also for those who are really familiar with John Collins, I'm going to talk a little bit of some nerdy basketball with some statistics that I would quantify as geeky. So here's a starting statistic that is not particularly geeky. He scored 22 points and 10 rebounds playing the 5 next to a pick-and-roll savant in Trae Young. That is something that happened in the NBA. And that's what the Jazz got for Rudy Gay and a second-round pick. That's a win. Like David Locke mentioned when John Collins was first brought on and he talked about, okay, what role is he going to play? He will not be playing the 5 for the Jazz. That's Walker Kessler. And he's a bit of a tweener offensively, as he's more suited to be a 5 there and a 4 defensively. And I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I do think there's room for optimism how he will play for the Jazz. And I'll elaborate why. John Collins' main appeal is he's a tremendous athlete. And we've seen a few guys, and I made this point. So for those of you who've heard this already, bear with me. But for those who haven't, I think this is a really interesting point for winning basketball players. Those guys who've had athleticism be their best trait in recent years when they've taken a more modified team-centric role as opposed to a starring role have really helped their basketball stock. And 2 of them that come to mind are Aaron Gordon and Andrew Wiggins. I make this point to say that if he molds his game to play into his athleticism and contribute to winning basketball, there's a lot that athleticism does. It's like it gives you a barometer. It's like, you know what? You've got a set level that you can be at. And if you're good enough skill-wise and you have that athleticism, you can be a good player. And it also, John Collins has those numbers where he's used athleticism and he's scored, but athletically, I think he allows himself to be a plus defensive player with that capacity off. And then if he plays winning basketball on a team that is more pass centric, whereas Atlanta was very much Trae Young centric, there's a chance that he really thrives in this sort of egalitarian system and that plays to, as Will Hardy likes to put it, the superpowers of a team. So I think he's got the athletic capacity and the grass is greener in a new place situational capacity to really improve. And I think that's awesome. And like I said, the Jazz are very egalitarian. The Hawks were heliocentric. Heliocentric essentially means that the world revolves around Trae Young, and that it did. Now for some stats. I told you David Locke says he's geeky numbers and expertise. Well, here are some geeky numbers for you. Did some digging. John Collins in 2021, 2022 scored 16 and 8 with 36% from three with a block per game. Collins was a 41% unguarded catch and shoot shooter from three. That's in the NBA. That's really good. Like we talked about Sensabaugh arguably being the best shooter in the draft. Well, that's in college, and he was 44% from catch and shoot, 44.8, so about 45%. He's 55% on dribble jump shots, which is 91st percentile. That's regarded as excellent. 69% from the rim, regarded as excellent. And John Collins' shooting also was significantly marred by breaking his finger that year. And his finger, it does not look as broken. I saw him in person at the Summer League, and his finger looked better. It's hard to tell. I mean, I was close, but I was like, I'm no finger doctor expert. But it looked like it wasn't like those Twitter photos you're seeing of a finger that's 3 times the size of another finger. But statistically, after breaking his right ring finger, he shot 12% in the month of March from three, and his numbers in January and February also declined. And if you track back through injury reports, it's late January is when that injury happened. Now, why is this good to know for the Jazz? Because the rendition of the Hawks after they made the Eastern Conference Finals, they came back to reality, and Collins' role for the team was less of what I saw for how he's going to play for. The way he played for the Hawks after is more of what I think he can do for the Jazz, because he's not going to be the role guy that he was on that team where Clint Capella was there, and then he got injured. And there's variations. The Hawks had a bit of a hot garbage fire, and they transitioned coaches. That said, I think what he can do is use his athleticism, play the dunker spot, play pick and roll, space the floor, pick and pop, and play to his strengths. And he can use his traits like Gordon Wiggins did to become a better defender. And by all accounts, John Collins, despite having his name in trade rumors for 2 straight years, was extremely team first and did not complain at all, but appeared to have the trade rumors weigh on him in terms of the way he shot the basketball and just lacked confidence at times. Fresh starts can be great. We saw this with Lauri Markkanen. Like Lauri Markkanen and John Collins are not dissimilar at all. They were in the same draft class. They were both highly regarded, put up numbers on a team that wasn't particularly great. And then they're going to go to a situation where they can believe in their traits and become better basketball players. I think that's what's going to happen here. I don't think John Collins scoring 22 and 10 is a fluke in his third year. And then he's a 16 and 8 guy. And then he becomes a 13 and 6 guy. Maybe on a better team, your number's lower. And the Jazz are better than what the Hawks were last year, but not by much, I think. And so maybe they're similar to that. But I also think it's not too difficult to say, well, John Collins, Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler, are they all going to fit? Well, Lauri Markkanen was nearly a 50-40-90 guy. He can really shoot the basketball. Walker Kessler is an amazing defender and an amazing athlete. John Collins, probably the best athlete of all of them. And yes, there's a way he can play on the perimeter. There's a way he can play on the interior. And Will Hardy schemed players into success. I have the utmost faith that Will Hardy is going to find a way to make John Collins successful. Lastly, Collins provides lineup versatility. He plays the 4 in the starting lineup. I think he plays a lot of minutes at the 5 in the backup unit and plays alongside Kelly Olynyk, maybe a little bit alongside Taylor Hendricks, maybe a little bit alongside Luka Samanic. And I think he's going to be a valuable addition for guiding Taylor Hendricks. We talked about how Taylor Hendricks might spend some time in the G League. I think John Collins is going to play those minutes statistically. It'll help Collins, but I think he's also going to make Taylor Hendricks better for having someone to look forward to learning from. John Collins was the 17th pick out of Wake Forest, and he came in, put up big numbers early in his career, and has faded a little bit. New situation. Lauri Markkanen was the same thing last year. John Collins was playing the center offensively at times when playing with a pick and roll guy, and then he's not, and he's playing with even more players that want the ball. Like DeAndre Hunter got big money. Clint Capella had a lot of money. the Bogdanovic shot a lot of shots, and it just became crowded. And obviously, Trae Young is the main guy there. I think in an egalitarian system where the best scorer, the best player on the team, Lauri Markkanen, who wasn't regarded as he was the third option in Cleveland. He was playing the three. And if you were to look at the building blocks of that team at that point, I think you would have said Garland. I know you would have said Evan Mobley. And there's people that could have said Jared Allen. And now you look at Lauri Markkanen, and he was a near all NBA caliber player last year. I don't think John Collins is quite that caliber. But if you'd asked me last year, I didn't think Lauri Markkanen was either. I think John Collins has a chance to be a double-double threat on a nightly basis who athletically molds himself to play better defense than he's seen in his career and is encouraged to do so and is happy in a new environment. And I really think this is a guy that the NBA as a whole is underrating because his contract was overpaying the production he put forth. But if you look at a lot of these contracts around the NBA, some of them are ridiculous. Like I think Fred VanVleet's a very good player, but he's getting $43.3 million per year. Who's the better value contract? $25 million for John Collins or $43.3 for Fred VanVleet? My money's on Collins. I think that's a more conducive to success contract, considering the fact he's playing a more valuable position and he's big. Statistical predictions. I said I'd give you those, so here's my guess. I think Collins is likely to score around 16 points on good efficiency, snare around 7 or 8 rebounds per game, and I expect a new start where players, the players like Will Hardy. He's a player's coach. And I think Will Hardy and his egalitarian system, which he talks about letting players play to their strengths. He calls them superpowers. Like, what is each player's superpower? He found a way to scheme Talen Horton-Tucker into being a point guard who goes downhill and get to his right hand and finish using that big, broad body. I think he's going to find a way to, with all the focus taking a lot of big, rangy defenders, find a way for John Collins to be really effective, attacking the rim, getting wide open shots. And if he shoots the ball well, I could see him easily outproducing my expectations because I think these are fairly tame predictions of 16 and 7. I think Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler is going to get big defenders. And if they don't, they're going to eat. And I think John Collins is going to reap the rewards of the attention Lauri Markkanen gets after his near all-NBA season, scoring 25 and 8. Like, these are real thoughts that I think are very possible and almost probable. The more I talk, I think that John Collins could have a monstrous year. I also think that he's going to be one of the top scorers in the backup units, and that's going to help his scoring averages. And the more I think about this, like, I could see him scoring 17 and 8 as opposed to 16 and 7, like I said. Last thing, Aaron Gordon. I know I brought this up at the beginning. Aaron Gordon in a vacuum entering this year, I think most people would say John Collins was a better basketball player. Now Aaron Gordon's like the guy that tips the scales for a team that won the championship. The world champion Denver Nuggets won the championship, and Aaron Gordon was the lockdown defender. He was the player that was so good that every team needs an Aaron Gordon. Why can't John Collins be the Jazz's Aaron Gordon? Like, why can't his value to a team with athleticism, scoring punch that's supplementary but not the top option, and then rebounding, defending, running, be just as advantageous to the Jazz as it was for the Nuggets? I know the Jazz don't have Nikola Jokic. I know they don't have Jamal Murray, and they're not quite set up for the success in the same way, but I think he can play a role that's similar. And I think if you put them in a vacuum, John Collins is the better player. No one's going to say that now this year, but if you'd ask a lot of people throughout their careers, Aaron Gordon entered the league in 2014 and John Collins in 2017, John Collins was the more accomplished player. And I think he's going to have a really good year, and he's going to change the way that the national media perceives him. Now, coming up next, let me tell you about what to expect from the big fellas, or the building blocks of the Jazz Foundation in the finisher, Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler. But first, a message from Birddogs. Birddogs, quite simply, just make you look good. And in fact, I have a testimonial for you guys. I was wearing what I'd consider the fancier pair of Birddog shorts I've got. I got 2 pairs of them. And today, I was walking and playing golf. My friend asked me, he said, "What are those?" And I said, "Oh, these are Birddogs. I got them when I came back from the combine. They were sitting on my bed, and ever since I haven't changed out of them." And then I got home. My mom said, "Those are cute shorts." And I came home from golf with one of my high school best friends. And I was like, wow, I really got to share this. I hope there's a Birddogs read. And there was. So Birddogs knew. They have liners on some of the shorts, and they don't have liners in others, whichever you prefer. They are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg and giving you a truly sculpted look. and everyone's complemented, both the athletic and the fancier ones. Birddog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon shorts, but they fit way better and they're cheaper. They fit better than regular shorts, which are made of like a stiff kind of non-yielding fabric, and it's typically cotton, those ones. Birddogs have a synthetic liner on the inside, and it just looks great on the outside. Birddogs also uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. It was 94 degrees when I was golfing today, and I sweat a lot like playing any sport, but my Birddogs kept me in great shape in that regard, and I had one of the best golf rounds I've ever had. So no complaints from my shorts, no complaints from my game, and that is a W. Best practices that you should think about when wearing your Birddogs is just talk about how amazing they are to anyone who is listening, because I was a walking advertisement at the golf course with my friend, and I told him, you know where you can get them? On Birddogs. And you know where else you can get them? Birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA or enter promo code LockedOnNBA for a free Yeti-style tumbler. I have my Yeti-style tumbler. I need to bring that with me as I golf because I ran out of water. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA or promo code LockedOnNBA for a Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you. Welcome back into Locked On Jazz. The Jazz may like what they have in Keontae George, but like I said in yesterday's episode, which every day as I hope you guys have listened to, where I compared him a little bit to Jamal Murray, a little bit to Bradley Beal, a little bit to CJ McCollum. He's not going to lead the Jazz in scoring this year. It's probably going to be these two guys, Lauri Markkanen and John Collins. But I'm going to talk to you about Lauri Markkanen real quick. Lauri Markkanen averaged 25.6 points per game, 8.6 rebounds per game, 1.9 assists per game, 49.9% from the field, 39% from three. And, he's a tremendous free throw shooter as well. The Jazz were playing, they were a play-in caliber team. Like, they were playing basketball that could have gotten them into the playoffs before trading Mike Conley, Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley. But that was not what the Jazz's intentions were on the year. And once you lost those players, it was hard to achieve. The Jazz overachieved, and the reason they did that was they were in with a new coach that exceeded all expectations in Will Hardy. They were in a new system, and they had a star player that most people didn't know they had in Lauri Markkanen. Like he started off Eurobasket last year, killing it for Finland. People were like, "Oh, maybe he's better than we realized." And then he came to the Jazz, and within the first practice, they're like, "Okay, this guy's our best player." And I don't think anyone really knew that. Like a lot of people thought Colin Sexton was the best piece in that trade. The Jazz knew it was Lauri Markkanen. So the pressure is on for Lauri Markkanen, but you'd assume he improves with an improved roster. Like I think in some ways there's going to be more attention paid to him, but the roster is better as a whole than it was at the end last year. I think numerically he likely has a very similar stat sheet, but his impact might be greater because he's got more partners who can score the ball. And Lauri may even be more involved in the offense. I talked about positionless basketball. That's what the Jazz played in the second half of the Summer League game. And I think there's been a concerted effort to see a guy like Lukas Samanic bring the ball up. Well, that could be Lauri Markkanen. That could be John Collins. It could be Ochai Agbaji, like it's been a lot in Summer League. And I think that allows him to become a decoy with his scoring prowess as he opens up his game more. The Jazz could reap the rewards of a 7-footer bringing the ball up and running ball screen actions, making teams really scramble and switch. I think he's going to improve his assist count, and maybe that lowers his scoring, but I also think it's going to allow him to attack more in transition, and he thrived there. He's a tremendous athlete. So you're getting someone who brings up the ball, and he's going to be someone who's more involved in the every play offense, as the Jazz likely are going to play more and more positionless basketball just because it is what the NBA is trending to, but also the Jazz don't have a set point guard. So maybe it's going to be Clarkson, who's the main ball handler. Maybe it's going to be Agbaji at times. Maybe it's going to be Lauri Markkanen at times, who's going to bring the ball up the floor. And I think that makes him more versatile and more deadly. And I think he's going to become a better basketball player for it. I imagine Lauri is going to score somewhere between 24 and 26 points, averaging about 8 rebounds per game. He's going to be a better defender because he's got a even better Walker Kessler behind him. He's got the size of John Collins behind him and the athleticism of John Collins. And I think the big jump you're going to see is more assists per game, and he's going to have more defensive pressure on him. And so he's going to have to be a better leader. He's going to have to learn to be a decoy, score efficiently in a lot of tricky ways. And I also think he's going to attempt more threes. That's just how the game's developing. and that he shot a lot of them, and a lot of them were scripted, but I think you're going to see him shoot more, and there's going to be a concerted effort for him to get more in transition and earlier offense because he's really good at it. And if you get the ball on him to him on advantageous situations, he thrived in those. And I think that a lot of that will be early threes for Lauri Markkanen. Lauri, to me, will be an all-star on a playoff contender, easily cementing him as one of the top 30, top 25 players in the game today for back-to-back seasons. If he can add more ball skills, he could push for an all-NBA, but that's hard to see happening just with such immense depth at his position, or more so his archetype, where it is just big wings reigning supreme in the NBA. Now, I talked about how there was two pillars for the Jazz's franchise that they're built on, and Walker Kessler is the other one. I think he'll be the most improved player on the Jazz, and considering he was good last year, that's really encouraging. I think playing for this Team USA team, which features Mikal Bridges, it features Jaren Jackson Jr., the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, and many others, I think will accelerate the process for Walker Kessler to get better. Kessler statistically last year was solid, but ended the year averaging 9 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, 2.3 blocks per game, and shot just 52% from the field, from the free throw line, However, in March, when the Jazz really committed to the youth movement, Kessler started to play more. As early in the year, he and Jared Vanderbilt were separated in units, and Kessler looked really awesome, but wasn't playing time. He averaged 13.8 points per game on 76% shooting from the field, 10 rebounds, 1.5 assists per game, and 3.2 blocks per game. That's outstanding. That is just absolutely outstanding. Kessler, I assume, will be around those numbers with a larger opportunity to play and more involvement in the offense. However, I think he and John Collins at times become a little redundant, and it's going to make him step out. And there's a lot of videos of him shooting threes. I think he'll shoot a few. I just don't anticipate a high volume, nor necessarily a very high percentage from Walker Kessler. I hope I'm wrong in that regard, but I think it's more likely Collins steps out, but there's going to be more of a shot distribution between the bigger guys on the Jazz roster, which is why I think that his scoring doesn't improve too much from that March stint. I think there's going to be dunking, a little less pick and roll, as he won't always be the pick and roll guy. I think John Collins is such a good pick and roll player. There's going to be a lot of pick and roll with John Collins. And then you got to figure out some tricky spacing between the two. Kessler and Agbaji should each improve. But the reason I went with Kessler as the player that I think improves the most is because he improves from a good NBA player, an already good NBA player, to a very good one that threatens to all defense. And that's a more impressive jump than a guy who cemented his place as someone who belongs in the NBA to becoming a rotational player, which is Agbaji's. And I value what Kessler's jump looks like more so. I think Walker Kessler could threaten for an all-defense team. I think he's going to be an averaging double-double type of guy. And I think what he can do is if he starts to knock down some threes, it allows for the Jazz to have a capacity to have shooting at all positions. So it opens up the Jazz to being an even more deadly offense, especially if they play the positionless basketball and they have the size and length defensively to be disruptive. They have top flight athletes all over the court. I think it'd be really interesting if the Jazz play a lineup at some point this year that is Jordan Clarkson, Ochai Agbaji, Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen, and John Collins. Those are really amazing athletes. I've heard the Jazz training staff talk about Clarkson as being one of the most underrated athletes they've worked with. And if you were to look at like just positionally how athletic they are, I would say he'd be in fifth place there. That would be tremendous. And I think Walker Kessler's size, ability to sprint down the floor, defensive just capacity, if he's able to shoot the ball, that opens up the Jazz to do a lineup where they're shooting at all five positions. They run the floor defensively. They could be a nightmare. And I think Kessler gaining respect of offenses as a terrifying defender is going to bend teams' shot charts. And because the Jazz have such size and Lauri Markkanen on the wings, John Collins is a secondary rim protector, potentially Taylor Hendricks down the road, the Jazz's defense could be a top 15 defense. So he's going to anchor a top 15 type of defense, maybe even top 10. That's ambitious, but it's possible. Top 10, top 15 defense, playoff team, potential second team all defense type of big who is a double-double in year two. That's what I expect from Walker Kessler. I'm not saying all of those things come true, but he's going to be bordering on a lot of those things. That's pretty awesome. Well, thanks for listening to Locked On Jazz Day and making this your first listen as always. Every dayers, I look forward to talking with you guys again tomorrow. And for those of you who need some more Summer League content, you're like, man, I want to hear the latest on who's doing great. Well, go listen to Rafael Barlow and Richard Stallman at Locked On NBA Big Board, who are in Las Vegas watching all these games even more so than I can. And they are awesome. Went to Chicago with each of them and really admire the way that they work and love the game. So give them some credit, give them some listens, and learn more about the game yourself. And let's engage about that on Twitter. My Twitter is at Leif Thulin, and I'm looking forward to talking to you guys. And let's go Jazz as they can continue to battle in the Las Vegas Summer League. Let's see if the Jazz can put together a deep run and contend for a title in the Summer League. With all that said, hope you guys have a great day. And as always, go Jazz.